Over the past 5 or so years, Keemstar has been struggling to get a consistent podcast in the works. He started off with the Bad Kid Cast, after that fell apart he moved on to Triggered, after that he moved on to Baited, and most recently his attempt at a podcast is with his new project called Mom's Basement, with his co-hosts FaZe Banks and ColossalIsCrazy. But with only 2 episodes of the podcast out, there already seems to be drama that might indicate the breakup of yet another Keemstar podcast. It all started when Keemstar tweeted out that the new episode of Mom's Basement with guest Mike Mailjack had been posted to Spotify. ColossalIsCrazy responded to Keemstar's tweet promoting the release of the second episode by saying, "Please fucking tell me why Mike Mailjack got a say on which parts were cut. I've been censored massively to the point where what I'm saying is taken completely out of context and is nonsensical. Why? Is it because he didn't like some of the things I said? This is some pussy shit." Colton responds to Clown by saying, "Clown, you were the only reason I watch. They better not be cutting your say on shit." Colossal then responds, 50 to 60% of everything I said is gone, and I have the original recording to prove it. It's pretty dumbo. Keemstar's only response to this at the time is a quote tweet of this response to Colton, where he captions it by saying, "Here we go!" I guess he was excited for some potential drama to break out from this, which admittedly it did when Mike Mailjack replied to Colossal on Twitter by saying, "Wait, what I asked for, one tiny cut from one segment," laughing my fucking ass off. Colossal then responds, 31 minutes cut. You were worried about things said and asked them to be cut. It led to other things being cut to protect Logan and yourself from looking bad. You ruined an entertaining conversation. Next time, hit me up and ask me to cut what I said. I might have done it as a courtesy." Mike then responds, "The cut I asked for was 2 minutes long, brother. This seems like it should be an internal convo between yourselves, not me or the internet." Clown then responds, "I don't know how much you asked cut, just that you wanted things fucking cut. More directly, things I said cut. But as you've said, you wanting things cut led to other things being cut. Not all the blame is yours, but for sure some of it. And you should just own that." Mike then responds, "Honestly, man, I was the guest on the show. I showed up at a time I should have been hiding out, only as a courtesy to Bank, and only to be berated for an hour by you. I don't know what you fucking want from me, man." Clown then responds, "Berated. I threw you a few tough questions and comments, and for the most part, I was perfectly pleasant. That's not you being berated at all. You just aren't able to take criticism, it seems." Mike never directly responds to this, but he does continue the conversation with Clown by making a separate tweet at him that says, "Yo, in all fairness, Banks just told me the final cut is 42 minutes. I reviewed a 1 hour 15-minute cut last night and suggested a 3-minute cut that changed nothing. I guess the decision to cut the other 30 minutes came from the top? Sucks, cause it was a great convo." After this was tweeted out, Keemstar tries to hype up the situation by making a tweet of his own on his Twitter that says, "So ColossalIsCrazy and Mike Mailjack got into a big fight on today's Mom's Basement, and a bigger fight after, cause 31 minutes was cut from the recording. To be fair, it's a mess. I don't think it's anyone's single fault exactly. Is a combination of things." I think he means it's a combination of things. Either way, Colossal responds to this tweet by Keem and says, 50 to 60% of everything I said was completely deleted. Remove half my sentence and it becomes a totally different sentence. Remove my entire response and it makes me look like I didn't respond. That is the main reason why I was pissed, and I think anyone would be in my place." TT Money responds to Keemstar's tweet by saying, "Honestly, it just seems like ColossalIsCrazy has it out for Mike. Kinda disappointed in the episode, because Colossal just seemed to try and combat everything Mike said without letting the conversation ever get anywhere." Clown then responds, "And anyone can draw that conclusion due to the fact over half of what I'm saying is completely missing. This is why I'm pissed. If you take away half my sentence, the sentence is a completely different sentence. Anyone would be angry at this." S-Beast then responds to Colossal by saying, "Do you have the permission/right to upload the uncut version? Or would that be an issue with the other members of the podcast?" Clown then responds, "I'd need permission from them, and Spotify too most likely." He says this because Mom's Basement is actually made in collaboration with Spotify behind the scenes, and there's like an exclusivity deal and other stuff going on, so it's a little different than Keemstar's older podcasts in that regard. Anyways, someone else called Jack Edwards responds to this entire situation by saying, "Bro, You and Colossal need to grow up. You had Mike, who was a great guest, and you wasted it attacking him while he's killing it. Someone then responded to him by saying, damn bro, can't believe you said this dude, cutting out some of his tweet to make it form an entirely different sentence, obviously mirroring what happened to Clown in the actual podcast episode. Clown responds to this with an image that says, he's right, you know. Mike comments on this for the final time on his Twitter by saying, to be clear, the OG Mom's Basement cut was over an hour. I asked for a 3-minute chunk to be cut cause we all got nasty, and I didn't like that. I have no issues with Keem or Clown, and as usual, Banks is one of the realest motherfuckers in the game. Wish y'all nothing but the best. BK2020 then responds to him by saying, shouldn't have cut any of it, mate. Better if it's natural. Mike then responds, guests always have the option when something is said that doesn't sit well. I suggested a very small cut. I don't know what happened to the other 30 minutes. And then Keemstar responds to Mike by saying true, probably agreeing with the part of the tweet where he says Banks is one of the realest motherfuckers in the game. Which I am here to say that I don't think this is the case when it comes to Banks at all. Because the question on everyone's mind in regards to the situation is who was responsible for the 30-minute cut. If Clown didn't want it cut, if Mike didn't want it cut, it obviously has to lie on Keemstar or Banks to have it cut. Unless, you know, one of their employees who might be editing the podcast, I don't know if one of the hosts is editing it or if it's somebody else. If that person cut it without the permission of either Banks or Keem, Keem's response would be a lot more hostile and aggressive. I don't think he would be responding on Twitter as calmly as he has, and Banks would probably come out and say something about this on his Twitter as well, and that person would be fired. So realistically, it was either Keem or Banks who cut 30 minutes out of the podcast. And after listening to the podcast myself and guessing where the cut is based on how the conversation went, I believe that FaZe Banks is the one responsible for cutting out the 30 minutes of Clown, which is why I disagree that Banks is one of the realest motherfuckers in the game, because if you're a real motherfucker, you probably wouldn't cut out an entire segment of Clown criticizing Mike just to make Mike look better. So let me get into why I actually think FaZe Banks was the one who cut this. So the conversation that was cut revolved around Logan Paul and I presume Mike as well. The conversation started when Mike and Banks were talking about how if you make fun of people online, you are not happy within yourself and have some issues to work through. No happy person would go around criticizing others. Obviously, this is a statement I heavily disagree with, and Clown and Keem, who are both drama content creators on the podcast, would also heavily disagree with, so it sparked some interesting discussion. This is what Mike had to say about negative content creators.
That thought process and that way of creating content is prehistoric. Everyone, as you can see in real time, all of the rude, mean creators are getting pushed to the bottom. Look at the people at the top of the charts right now. Look at the people who are cleaning up on views. Family channels, David Dobrik, who is good to all his people, who is buying shit for his fans. Even say me. Say Logan Paul, 5, 7, 10 million views per video. Most of all, Mr. Beast, giving shit out, making people feel good about their lives.
I refuse to believe that Logan Paul is such a great beacon of positivity.
I disagree. I would disagree with you wholeheartedly. The people that watch his content.
I think he would disagree with you.
He wouldn't.
Disagree with
the people that. Hold on, let me finish.
Clown, wait, Clown, explain yourself. Like, why do you think that he's negative?
Because he is.
Clown, have you watched recent Logan Paul?
No, let him explain.
To be fair, I haven't seen the recent Logan Paul content, but I'm aware of his previous content, and I think I have him kind of figured out as like somewhat his personality.
Well, what is it about his old?
And I do not think he is a beacon of positivity. I do not believe that.
What is it about his old? What is it about his old content that struck you so negatively?
Because
even just his old content, not his new stuff.
Because he was doing crazy fucking shit. He went to a suicide. Look, can we talk about the suicide forest thing? I mean, that's the prime example, really.
Oh, we're just gonna run to the one mistake. Just straight to it.
That was the one mistake.
Listen. Let's.
No, hold on. No, I want to talk about this. If that's his go-to, because I've done horrible.
I mean,
things
I just use that as the prime example because everyone knows that. That's like the most mainstream thing that he's done, right? That's what people know Logan Paul for.
But hold on, Clown, let me ask you a question. I'm sure you've done something in your life that you're ashamed of, yes? If you can't answer that question quickly by saying yes, you're a fucking liar. Have you done something in your life that you're...
Well, I really don't think... No, I don't think
as
so.
a human being...
How is that possible? How old are you?
I'm 30. I'm 32.
How is that fucking possible?
I don't think I have. Like, genuinely ashamed of.
You've done nothing in your life that you're ashamed of.
No. Not in the comparison, no.
Clown, what I'm getting at is this. Whether or not there is something, let's imagine that there is, because for every single other human on Earth besides you, everybody regrets something they've done in their life. Now, let me ask you
I've
this.
been embarrassed by things I've done, but you used the adjective ashamed.
Okay, Banks, let me ask you. Banks, have you done something in your life that you're ashamed of?
Absolutely.
How would you feel
Absolutely.
if the one definition of you as a person, as a creator, as a life form, was that one horrible, ashamed regret that you made in your life?
The thought of that is obviously unfair.
Horrible.
It sucks. Yeah.
And so if that is the reason why Logan Paul is a demon in your book is because he made one tragic mistake in his life.
I didn't say that at all.
Of course.
That's not what I said at all.
Can I hop in? Can I chime in? Let's just wipe that clean. Let's pretend that didn't exist for a second.
And right at that moment is where I think the cut was, for two reasons. One, Colossal responds to Mike by saying, "That's not what I said." But we didn't actually hear the point Clown was trying to make, because that was cut completely from the podcast. You heard him earlier bringing up the Suicide Forest as one example of Logan Paul not being a beacon of positivity, but obviously, as many of you guys might know, there's a lot more examples of Logan Paul being negative outside of just the Suicide Forest. The Suicide Forest is just the most well-known and the biggest example of that, which is why Clown started off the conversation by bringing that up. I assume the cut conversation brings up more instances of Logan being negative outside of the Suicide Forest incident. Obviously, this is just speculation. I don't know. But after the cut happens, we can hear that Banks says, "Let's just cut that completely from the slate." So it seemed like Banks had the intention of cutting that part out even while they were recording the podcast. And another indicator to Banks being the one responsible for cutting this part of the podcast comes later into the podcast when he says this.
Can I ask this then, please? Like, Mike, do you consider yourself a beacon of positivity?
I will say, as Mike's personal friend, and I didn't touch base on this.
No, I want Mike to answer, Banks. I'm sorry.
Let me speak. Let me talk. Because I get cut off and then I just wanted
his answer.
I've gotten cut off a fucking million times in this episode. Let me fucking talk and give my take, and then Mike can Listen, you two have been going at Mike, and he's had to defend himself, and he's my fucking homie, and I respect what he's done. Listen, Mike is extremely positive. A to Z extremely positive, okay? And Logan isn't Jake, and Mike isn't Logan, and they're all individuals at the end of the day, and they work together, and they operate as a team. Not so much Jake, but you and Logan, and that's just the fucking fact.
So Banks gets extremely defensive when it comes to Clown criticizing Mike, which in the context of the final cut version of the podcast doesn't really make sense, because at no point in the final version does Clown really go after Mike. It's more just criticizing Logan, if anything. So unless FaZe Banks is lying for whatever reason, which I don't understand why he would lie about this, the part of the podcast where Clown presumably berated Mike, like he was mentioning in that tweet, was the part that was cut out. And Banks had the incentive of cutting it out because he is good friends with Mike and didn't want him to look bad or get berated on his podcast. The reason why I think Keem isn't responsible is because in that previous clip I showed you, Banks mentions how Keem was also going after Mike, which again was presumably cut out. And you can kind of get the vibe in the podcast that while Keem does respect Mike, he isn't as close friends with him as Banks is, and Keem and Mike have had back and forths on Twitter in the past. It would make no sense for Keem to be protecting Mike in this instance. If you want more full context to this entire situation, I highly recommend listening to the second episode of Mom's Basement yourself. and maybe just the podcast in general, because I think it's a very entertaining podcast, and I would recommend you guys listen to it on Spotify. I will leave the link to it in the description below. But if you're interested in some long-form content to listen to that doesn't involve Keemstar, ColossalIsCrazy, or FaZe Banks, I've actually recently started streaming more frequently on Twitch, where I'm just playing games, talking with chat. It's a pretty chill time. If you guys want to check that out, I will leave it in the description below. Be sure to follow me over there to know when I go live, and also follow me on Twitter to know when I go live on Twitch and to keep up to date with anything drama related that I might talk about over there. Also, if you haven't already and you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. I'm very close to 100k, so if we could make that final push to get to that milestone, it would mean a lot to me. Just as much as these channel members mean to me, your support is very appreciated and does not go unnoticed, especially Josh Pescator, who's donated $30 a month. He has a cool news channel if you'd like to check that out. Either way, that's about it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another one.